The news broke that he was resigning minutes before we were due to record, so we figured we'd wait around and watch it. And
I broke the news to you in your kitchen, and you were like, what?
Yeah.
You didn't know.
And I half expected Steve to show me a tweet. It's like, oh, Steve, that's like, that's Mr. Booth getting you again. You know what I mean?
Rumor break.
Wouldn't be the first time. Smart insider man.
That's a Sim 7 on that
Maurice.
One. I got to tell you, we'll go into the initial thoughts here in just a second. But if you've missed the story, if you're, just driving home and you've been, working all day, Paul Maurice, surprise resignation this morning with the Winnipeg Jets. And, what's interesting about this is that he's had an 8-year run with this franchise. And that's got to be the longest tenure in the NHL, right?
It's up there.
Like, I don't think, like, in the current NHL, among active.
Right.
There's nobody that's longer than that.
None I can think of.
And, you think about, like, some of the longer ones. We had Quenneville, Trotz, some of the other... Like,
here, you want the list?
Yeah.
It's John Cooper, March 25th.
We always forget about John Cooper.
2013 is when he was hired. And then
Wow.
second on the list, Paul Maurice, 2014, January 12th.
That's impressive. So here's the thing. When you have a coach that's that long tenured, obviously, they're right at that point, they're built into the walls, right? They're part of the furniture. And so to see that he resigned himself, and I tweeted out that it must have been serious, and people were like, wait a second, it's nothing sinister. I'm like, well, that's not what I meant. And I get the context of the time. We'll talk about the Kyle Beach settlement in a bit here.
Yeah.
Serious can mean a lot of things. And what I meant by that was it seemed like this wasn't just a fly-by-night flippant thing. And that became evident over the course of the press conference.
Yeah, I got a few texts before the press conference began, like, "Oh, was he allowed to resign?" That's not what this was.
No, it's not one of those.
No.
If you're looking for that, it seemed to be, and there's going to be some significant reading between the lines here, and I think he left it open for that.
Yeah.
What he said was he wasn't happy coming to the rink anymore. Over the course of the pandemic, his, like so many people's perspective on their jobs and on their lives changed, and he said so for the first time in my life, it wasn't fun. He's like, it's not that I couldn't do a good job. It's not that I couldn't keep grinding, but I knew that I couldn't do the best job. And I guess these conversations have been happening since the summertime.
That's what it sounded like.
So he said he spoke with Shovel Dayoff, and I'm forgetting the other name.
Probably Mark Chipman.
Chipman and Shovel Dayoff about this exact situation happening over the course of the summer. And then they decided on, hey, I'm going to come back for the start of the season. And then now he made the decision again. So it's a long conversation. Like, it's been months since they've been having this.
I like this tweet. I feel good. I don't have a game that I have to coach tonight, and I don't have a job to get to tomorrow. So Dave Lowry...
It says it all, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does.
That's just all that stress just coming off of his shoulders.
Before we talk about Dave Lowry, can I...
I just wanted to say Dave Lowry's taking over as interim head coach. That's all I wanted to say. Go ahead.
Adam Lowry's father.
Oh, yeah, that's cool.
That's pretty interesting.
Former Flames captain Dave Lowry.
Yes, so he gets to coach his son.
That's kind of neat. Good for
them.
Like
so many dads, except in the NHL, which I can't think of the last time that happened, or if it's ever happened, or whatever.
But that quote says it all.
Yes.
Like, that's kind of what it boils down to, in that, okay, I don't have a game to coach tonight, and you're a head coach of a National Hockey League team, and you're relieved that you don't have to go to your job that evening. It's probably for the best that you're not doing it.
Mm-hmm. And that's not an indictment on Paul Maurice. I actually respect the hell out of the fact that a guy who's making 7 figures in his job, who really, there's no reason to let Paul Maurice go. It's not like he was on the edge or he was going to be fired. They had a bit of a tough start. They've had some ups and downs this season, but for the most part, Paul Maurice was going through this entire season.
We should commend him for making this decision.
It's very difficult, extremely difficult decision. And I mean, one of my first reactions in talking to people was, no one does this, right? Nobody does this. So I was dying to see the press conference to see what his reasons were. And, when you do something unique or out of the ordinary, people raise their eyebrows and they might question your decision, but he made it anyway. And it's obviously something that he wrestled with, because he was thinking about doing it in the summer, and it's almost Christmas. So finally came to it. He's also a unique coach at the National Hockey League level. He became a coach very young. I think at the beginning of his career, he was the youngest coach in NHL history.
He was barely 30, if 30 at all.
I don't think he was even 30. He, I believe he played hockey and sustained an eye injury when he was young. I think it was his eye. And he has coached, Adam, every single season since the year we were born.
Wow.
He was an assistant coach. He began his career, according to Hockey DB anyway, with the Windsor Spitfires in the OHL as an assistant. He became a head coach with the Detroit Junior Red Wings in 93-94 in the OHL. And every single year, with the exception of the 2004-2005 lockout, Paul Maurice was a head coach somewhere. Every single year since the year the Rangers won the Cup. He's been a head coach. He began his career, I mean, I'm talking about him like he's never going to coach again or whatever. We don't know that.
Mm-hmm.
But
he probably doesn't financially need to.
Probably not.
But what he does need to do is take a minute. I'm 33 years old.
Yeah.
Like
every year since we were born.
That's a long time to be doing the same thing.
He began coaching the first year Wayne Gretzky played for the Kings. He began as an assistant coach with the Hartford Whalers 95-96. That season, he also became a head coach. He was there for 3 seasons, and then the team moved to Carolina. I was like, oh, he got fired. Nope, sorry, the team moved. He went to Carolina. He was there for a long time. He's got a lot of stick-to-itiveness. Longevity.
That's a skill, by the way.
It is a skill, and Toronto's the only place he didn't last very long, and I can't help but feel like that was actually the Leafs' fault.
Yeah.
On account of they didn't give him a goalie.
No.
Which seems to come up every episode. Funny, it came up last episode. He was head coach of the Toronto Marlies for a season and was so good that he was promoted to Leafs head coach. And the only year since 2005-2006 when he was with the Marlies that he wasn't in the NHL was the lockout shortened 2013 year when he got to coach Metallurg Magnitogorsk, who had my favorite line, the best line outside of the National Hockey League during the lockout when I was doing KHL highlights of Sergei Moisakin, who's the KHL's all-time leading scorer, Nikolai Kulemin, noted Leaf, and some guy you might have heard of by the name of Evgeny Malkin.
Wow. I would just like to highlight Paul Maurice's Hockey DB picture because I have never seen Paul Maurice with a full head of hair.
Oh, he was a handsome bugger.
He was a handsome young man.
He's 54. He's probably younger than all of us in that photo, including you, Jesse. He might be.
I don't know.
He might be. I'd love to know when that photo's from.
He's a dashing young man with that suit.
Strapping even.
Strapping, yes.
At age 43, he became the youngest coach in NHL history to coach 1,000 games. Wow. That happened November 28th. That happened November 28th, 2010.
Oh my God.
So he's 54. You know, like it's funny because I remember reading that stat on like a hockey card about him being the youngest coach. And he was the youngest coach for like a solid decade.
Oh, he's still not even that old for a coach. He's 54.
No, I always think of him as a young man, even though he's, 54 years young. That's a long time. I get it. And the thing about being a coach is you better be passionate about it because, even watching, I remember like Babs was like going to the rink at 5:30 in the morning for a game that they had at 7 o'clock that night.
That's just Toronto, though.
Is that just Toronto? Oh, yeah, he's trying to avoid the traffic. I love that he was going in like a gigantic like Ford F-150,
he lived
by the way.
next door.
Yeah. But it's a grind to be a head coach. It's a grind. It's thankless. Mm-hmm. When you lose, it's your fault. When you win, it's not.
Here, do you want one more fun Paul Maurice thing?
Yeah.
The last pick of the 1985 NHL draft. I never knew that.
There you go.
He was
round 12?
That's when he was drafted.
252nd overall by the Philadelphia Flyers. I never knew that.
To further what Adam was saying.
Sorry. Which I did not do.
being an NHL coach, like I don't think it's so much coaching as motivating. And if you're not motivating yourself, like how are you supposed to motivate these players? Because they're professional athletes. Like I've said this before, they know what they're doing. If you threw out a collection of a bunch of forwards on the ice, they'd know how to play hockey and you wouldn't need a head coach. So a lot of your job is just getting these guys ready for the game. And if Paul Maurice felt he couldn't get himself ready for the game, how is he supposed to get these professional athletes ready and up for each game?
I remember that being a fun conversation with Pat Quinn in the Olympic team, because people were talking about, well, there are more qualified hockey minds out there and fresher hockey minds. And I mean, he's a very good motivator, and everyone's like, yeah, that's good enough. It's Team Canada. They know what they're doing.
Mm-hmm.
All he has to do is motivate
Just
them.
get them fired up.
Yeah.
Yeah. And like Paul Maurice, you know, oh, I don't know about this or that. Or, no. It's Mark Scheifele and Blake Wheeler. And they know what to do.
Like, you're going to this Olympics and, oh, Crosby and McDavid are on a line. Like, what are you teaching them? I don't know.
I think I'll put them together.
I think we need to go over some tape.
Yeah.
But, you know, all that said, so congrats to him on this next move. He feels good. He said, I feel good about not having to coach a game tonight and not having to go to a job tomorrow. Then obviously it was the right call. And you know what? I can relate to that. I can understand that. I can't tell you how much has changed about my perspective on life over the course of the pandemic. I think that's the same for everybody. If you're right now looking at yourself and going, I'm the exact same, then I think you missed the point, right? And I think that there is a transformation happening with a lot of people where they're kind of going, was I just doing this, or am I happy in this?
It's I've always talked about, I think the way history is taught in school is very strange. But one thing teachers would do is just talk about an entire philosophical, cultural shift in one sentence.
Yes.
And then in this year, people started thinking differently.
And remember, it's
I'm
not why they started thinking differently. The answer on the test is what date they started thinking differently.
Yeah, what date did everyone start thinking differently? And I'm like, that's very strange.
It's like when they do how did World War II get started? And they summarize it in like 3 sentences in like a paragraph. And you're like, no, this was kind of a 20-year build and a couple wars in between.
Yeah. There was this guy Hitler. He didn't like a bunch of people.
Yeah.
America D-Day.
Like
that's literally history when you're in grade 10.
Yeah.
Dude.
Yeah.
Oh, it's embarrassing. It's embarrassing. It drives me crazy the way they teach that stuff.
Never did I ever imagine we would live several of those moments in our life. I was about to say many of those moments. And this is one of them, and it's a moment that's lasted over a year and a half now.
So here's what's happening, right? Like if you're wondering why things feel a little off kilter for you, and sociologists are talking about this too, is that we are in the middle of the biggest technological revolution since the Industrial Revolution. Like the way things are changing, it's on par, and in fact, it's more intense. We are in a complete information revolution. We have never seen information change hands this quickly. Never before have we seen this much information be available to this many people, which has its good and its bad.
And our brains are still adapting
Our brains are adapting to this. We did not grow up like this, right? Mm-hmm. We grew up with the printed word and a newspaper, and your dad read it at the dinner table. And then lastly, you've got a pandemic we haven't seen in a century. The likes of in a century.
This is longer than the
Spanish flu.
The Spanish flu.
Yeah. So with all that in mind, yeah, I think your perspective's going to change a little.
People might think about things differently.